After coming to the poisonous swamp, I only had one thought in my mind. With your skills, you can't come to this swamp to catch the crocodile alone, so there must be someone mighty helping you. Are you willing to admit that it is Yun Yanli? Yes. He and his subordinates helped me. Yun Qingluo's eyes flashed as she finally admitted the truth. Di Fui merely smirked. You came to the Shuro world 100 years earlier than Yun Yanli. Before he came, you must have been practicing dark sorcery here. However, you never disclosed your true appearance and only stayed behind the scenes. If I were to guess correctly, the sorcery that Yun Yanli used to consume spiritual power from the people in the Shuro world was taught to him by you, right? Yun Qingluo remained silent, but her eyes could not hide her fear. He knew that he was right. There must be someone behind Yun Qingluo, but that person was even more deeply hidden than her. Di Fui did not manage to find out anything about that person yet. You. Since you have already noticed this deception, then why did you dare to take the crocodile's heart and let Gu Shizhou use it? You. Are you not afraid that the heart is poisonous? Yun Qingluo questioned. Di Fui faintly replied, if I was not confident that it is safe, do you think I would give it to her? Perhaps you are not aware that I used to study about poisons. I know that certain poisons are connected to their creator. I was not quite sure whether this was true of the crocodile until you attracted it with blood from your heart. The crocodile possessed the characteristics that I expected it to have, and I knew from then on that its heart was indeed the solution. However, what you failed to mention was that I needed to force out of a bug in its heart before it can be used to cure Gu Shizhou, and the bug is closely connected with the little demon that you created. Di Fui continued, when I saw that you were using the little demon to manipulate the crocodile during the battle, I knew that I could use the array to drive out the bug in its heart, and now it is ready to be used as an antidote. Find authorized novels in webnovel faster updates, better experience please click for visiting. Yun Qingluo's face looked more ashen than before. She knew the strength of the silver ring crocodile and did not expect things to end this way. Before entering the swamp, she was convinced that even if it was drawn out, they could not deal with it. In the past, Yun Yanli wanted to use this crocodile to threaten her. He personally brought over 100 top masters to catch it. In the end, he was the only one to return. Yun Yanli had already cultivated to the level of a mighty immortal at that time, and his subordinates had also reached the level of a golden immortal. They were all defeated by the crocodile, so she believed that Di Fui and his small team would not stand a chance. Di Fui was only at the level of a golden immortal, and Zhu Duqing possessed a similar level of spiritual power to Di Fui. Furthermore, Gu Shizhou could not use her spiritual power at the moment since she was trying to suppress the poison. Meanwhile, the two guards from the Devil Palace had barely reached the level of a golden immortal. Based on her estimations, she thought that they would not even stand a chance. It was absolutely beyond her expectations that he would be able to beat the crocodile. Even if Di Fui defeated the crocodile, Yun Qingluo would merely suffer a temporary setback. However, seeing him treat Gu Shizhou so well right in front of her had made her blood boil with jealousy. In fact, she could not wait to die together with Gu Shizhou. Therefore, when she saw that the crocodile was going to be defeated, she made up her mind to use the little demon's heart to manipulate the crocodile. That was when she entered into the trap set by Di Fui. In fact, when she closed her eyes, she seemed to be in a state of meditation. But, she was actually secretly manipulating the little demon's heart to empower the crocodile. Di Fui needed this to happen so that the bug in the crocodile's heart could be drawn out. Therefore, Di Fui was always so concerned about her safety. Chapter 2395, Who had been schemed. 4. The skin of the silver ring crocodile was also not naturally red. It was because of the bug in its heart that had caused its genes to mutate. It was for that reason too that it grew to a large size with a strange exterior. Di Fui's mother was a master of poisons while his father was divine lord that possessed incredibly vast knowledge. When Di Fui came to the Shura world, the divine couple had taught him about some poisons that were specially designed for the Shura world. It included information on the characteristics of the silver ring crocodile as well. Therefore, after spotting the crocodile, Di Fui knew that it was mutated. Hua Qianyu and Guardian Jean did not expect there to be so many hidden stories on the matter. They were momentarily stunned by all these revelations. Hua Qianyu looked at the bugs which were still eating the little demon's heart. They looked like tiny snakes. Yunqing Luo felt so bad that cold sweat started to appear all over her forehead. Her body kept twitching involuntarily even though she no longer had to pretend that she was in pain. Hua Qianyu was so disappointed by what he had witnessed. He made up his mind and aimed one of his palms at the venomous bugs. He was going to kill one. Since these bugs caused her pain, perhaps killing them would relieve her. Just as he was about to take its life, Di Fui suddenly issued a glimmer of light to stop him. Hua Qianyu was shocked and took 2 steps back. He kneeled on the ground. Devil King, she used to be your beloved sister, please spare her life and save her. Di Fui faintly smiled at him. Are you giving me an order? Hua Qianyu continued to bow. I dare not. I am begging for your mercy. Please, save her. Di Fui responded slowly, Hua Qianyu, you used to be a big person in the devil world. In the past, you would never surrender, and I wanted to kill you. It was Yunqing Luo who advised me to keep you alive, and she successfully convinced you to surrender to me. Since your surrender, you have made countless contributions to the unification of my kingdom, so I believe that you are important to me. I know that you feel grateful to her for saving your life, so I am fine when you spoil her and occasionally convey news to her about me. However, if you betray me for her, he seemed to be really cold when he said that last sentence. Hua Qianyu was sweating profusely. He knew that he had already angered the Devil King, but he could only kowtow until his forehead was scarred. Devil King, you have the grace to teach me a lesson. I know that it is not right to do this to you, but I cannot let go of her. Can you please spare her life since she has not done anything bad? Has not done anything bad? Di Fui interrupted him. Do you know how her little demon's heart was created? Hua Qianyu was confused. How? How was it created? Her little demon's heart was formed using the hearts of young women. These women were tortured to death by excruciating means so that she could collect grievances from their deaths. Hua Qianyu was speechless. Even though he was a devil, it was hard to imagine this kind of behavior. In his heart, Yunqing Luo had always been gentle and kind. He would not even think that she would hurt a rabbit. Hence, this revelation was completely out of his expectation. Guardian Jean frowned as well at the thought. Although they were devils, they still despised hypocrisy. And Yunqing Luo seemed to be a master of it. Before these men pledged to serve Di Fui, they were all people of noble status in the Devil Kingdom and were quite powerful. They were all able to stir chaos or bring order to society. Furthermore, their power allowed them to receive the latest news about anything that they wished to know. After Di Fui's thorough analysis of the situation, Guardian Jean suddenly recalled something. About 211 years ago, there was a significant incident that shook almost everyone in the Shura world to the core. It was a case that involved a large number of people, over 1,000 girls went missing. All of them were of different social standings, different backgrounds, and different physical appearances. However, there were 2 common points that they shared. Firstly, they were all 14 years old. Secondly, their names would either contain the word Shi or Jiu. In the end, all of their bodies were found underground. None survived. Every single one of them was skinned with their tendons and heart removed. All the witnesses from the Devil Kingdom were disgusted by what they found. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates, better experience please click for visiting. The case had always remained unsolved and was known as the biggest mystery in the Shura world. Everyone was curious about the identity of the homicidal maniac. He or she must have been really sick to commit such a terrifying and inhumane mass murder. Automatically, people presumed that the killer must be a member of the Devil Kingdom. To Guardian Jean's surprise, the killer was a beauty who looked so delicate and fragile. He took a look at Hua Qianyu and was reminded about one of his relatives that were taken in the mass murder. His beloved niece was killed. Hua Qianyu's brother then lost his mind, knowing that he had lost his daughter in the slaughter. Like every other parent who had lost their daughters, he was obsessed with tracking down the murderer. Later, however, he was found dead, with every drop of his blood drained. There was only fear in his eyes, with a hint of anger. It was an absolutely terrifying scene. Guardian Jean looked at Yunqing Luo and was convinced that she must be a lunatic. So, you are the murderer who skinned the girls, right? Brother Hua, you swore to find the murderer and avenge the deaths of the girls. Hua Qianyu found the truth very unacceptable. He looked at Yunqing Luo with disbelief and asked, Yuan, are you really the murderer who skinned the girls? He wanted to hear what she had to say, even if it was a lie. To his dismay, Yunqing Luo looked up and gave him a wicked smile as she calmly said, do you know how their families died? They were shocked to death. I tortured the girls in a special chamber that was equipped with a video recording device. The detailed process of their suffering was clearly saved and replayed on one of the walls. The little demon that was slowly moving towards Yunqing Luo by following the bloodstains on the ground. Yunqing Luo did not seem to notice it. With a tight smile, she took a few breaths before adding, I kept the families in a special chamber and tied them up on chairs. I then turned on the screen on the wall to replay the process when their daughters slowly died. Then, I cut their wrists so that they would lose blood and die. Say no more. Shut up. You are a lunatic. Hua Qianyu trembled in anger. He clenched his fists tightly with all his veins popping out, seemingly ready to punch her in the face any time. Nevertheless, Yunqing Luo just had to continue, they would die overnight, either scared or shocked to their death, with every bit of their blood drained. As you know, when the number of killings increased, the dead would carry more and more resentment. When I bathed in their blood, I could completely erase the curse that their daughters left behind when I tortured them. It worked like magic. In this way, I could also allow their resentment to grow even stronger. The more their resentment, the more powerful the little demon. Bitch! You demon! Hua Qianyu shouted at Yunqing Luo in a trembling voice. He then raised his hand to hit her. Yunqing Luo gave him a cynical smile with no intention to avoid his swipe at her. However, before he managed to hit her face, Di Fui interrupted them. Let us keep her alive for now. Hua Qianyu's bloodshot eyes clearly showed his anger. He was confused as to why Di Fui would want to keep her alive after everything she did. Di Fui calmly said, keep an eye on her, both of you. Keep her alive. He then raised his hand and launched a streak of 7-colored light to remove the venom that was on her chest. He then placed the poison in a small bottle and kept it in his storage bag. Yunqing Luo's expression changed all of a sudden, and she started laughing hysterically. Di Fui, it seems that you are still reluctant to let me go. She claimed. Di Fui gave her a smug look and said, is that what you think? Please, proceed as you please. Yunqing Luo was irritated. Kill me. Why don't you just kill me? Even if you keep me alive, I will never tell you about the man behind all this. There's no way that is happening. Di Fui answered her briefly, we will see. He then left to check on Gu Shijiu, who was still in the array formation. Gu Shijiu needed to perform the alchemy process in a quiet environment, so Zhu Duqing made her a bamboo house at the core of the array formation. The house could block out all external sounds. Yunqing Luo watched as he left, but anger and hatred filled her eyes. There was something more behind what she was showing them, something too complicated to explain. Both guardians, Jean and Hua, felt an unreasonable sense of fear. Yunqing Luo, the Devil King has always been kind to you. Don't you feel guilty for setting him up? Tell us about the man behind the plan, and perhaps he will let you go. Guardian Jean tried to persuade her while suppressing his anger. Nevertheless, she laid there with her eyes closed, pretending she had not heard a thing. Without the Devil King's order, he would have killed her already. Hua Qianyu clenched his fists. He used to be very close to his niece. After she died, he swore to avenge the deaths of his niece and his brother. For years, he had been painstakingly trying to find the murderer, but to no avail. Never did he realize that the murderer had always been by his side. Sadly, he had even fallen for her. Hua Qianyu wanted to slap himself for falling into her trap. Yun Qing Luo, I have been blinded. But right now, I just want to kill you. Yun Qing Luo opened her eyes and looked at him firmly. Do it, she said. All of her evil plans had been thoroughly exposed. There was nothing she was afraid of anymore, so she would gladly accept her fate and hoped that Hua Qianyu would kill her right away. Hua Qianyu did not say anything. Instead, he vented his anger on a big rock by shattering it. You do not dare to kill me, such a coward. You do not even have the courage to avenge the death of your loved ones. Hua Qianyu, you are nothing but a coward. Yun Qing Luo continued to agitate him. Find authorized novels in webnovel faster updates, better experience please click for visiting. Hua Qianyu's face flushed with indignation, and he was ready to attack her. However, Guardian Jean quickly stopped him. The woman seeks a quick death. Don't grant her wish. Slowly, Hua Qianyu took a deep breath and was finally able to calm down. He continued to observe Yun Qing Luo. Her robes were completely soaked in sweat. Perhaps, she really did suffer. Yun Qing Luo, you have killed so many innocent lives. This is the punishment that you deserve. I will not kill you. Watching you suffer in agony is my kind of revenge. Yun Qing Luo looked up and gave him a tight smile. She was actually very weak, with barely any strength left. Quivering, she could not even sit herself up. She did not even have the strength to end her own life. Guardian Jean wanted to end Yun Qing Luo, but he had to obey the Devil King's order. There must be a bigger plan that he was not seeing. But what was the Devil King planning on to do? Guardian Jean could not figure it out, though he knew that keeping her alive was more than just to interrogate her. For someone who was as careful as Yun Qing Luo, it would be difficult to make her speak the truth. Furthermore, keeping her alive would make things complicated for the group, as she was sure to have more evil schemes. Hence, for now, all he could do was to keep his eyes on her and make sure she did not have any opportunity to do something to sabotage them. Di Fui took a walk around the bamboo house and found a place to sit outside. Zhu Duqing designed the house to be rather uninviting as he did not want her to be interrupted. Hence, there were no doors or windows. According to Zhu Duqing, Gu Shijiu could only leave the house when the alchemy was complete to make sure that there was no disruption while she was working. It was not an easy task to get the guiding herb, so Di Fui was very anxious about the result as well. He wanted to help her, but he dared not interrupt at this moment. The journey had been exhausting for him, so he closed his eyes to meditate for a moment. In fact, his body was aching from the journey. Di Fui was not keeping Yun Qing Luo alive simply because he felt indebted to her. In fact, he had already repaid her more than she deserved. It was Yun Qing Luo, who was indebted to him for his kindness. Yet, he could somehow tell that killing Yun Qing Luo was unwise at the moment, and would probably initiate a series of unfortunate events. Yun Qing Luo seemed too desperate to die. In this peculiar place, he had to be extra careful not to make any impulsive decisions. He took a look at Yun Qing Luo and saw her lying on the ground helplessly without even the strength to sit up. She kept trying to trigger the two escorts, but they did not even care to listen. Find authorized novels in webnovel faster updates, better experience please click for visiting. Relieved, he knew that he would always need great people to help him do great things. Hua Qianyu was a real talent that was rare to come by. He was a man of great capability and loyalty. Di Fui knew that he had feelings for Yun Qing Luo, but he needed to see the harsh truth for himself. With this, he would be able to let go of her. Hua Qianyu certainly deserves someone better. Yun Qing Luo was unworthy of him. Although the poisonous swamp area was dangerous, it certainly had great views. There were no animals in sight either. Alone, Zhu Duqing sat guarding the entrance from above and was pleased to find no intrusions. Meanwhile, Di Fui took the time to meditate and recover. Perhaps he was really tired, so he could feel his muscles aching everywhere. There was an uneasy flow of warm blood across his chest, making him feel rather grumpy. He needed to sit down and keep calm. Whenever he meditated, he could always calm down immediately and immerse himself in the state of complete oblivion, but this time was different. He fell asleep immediately. He had a dream. It was a wet dream. In the dream, there were flashes of light everywhere that brought him back to the village that was concealed within a wizardry barrier. He had just eaten animal testes and penis. Gu Shijiu then came by to offer her bed to him and asked that they sleep together. It was a crazy night that was unforgettable. Many times, he reminisced every sweet little moment that he had during that night. He was doing so again in his dream. Certainly, the dream was not a complete reflection of what happened that day. In the dream, he felt like he had just woken up from a night of lovemaking. She had already left the bed, so he woke up and went outside to look for her. He walked out of the white tent and saw a big lake. Chapter 2399, Which Party Had Been Schemed? 8. It was a vast, limpid lake with seemingly no end. There was a splash from one corner. Someone was there. Her hair was soaking wet, but her face was stunning. The woman was Gu Shijiu. She was gracefully swaying her arms about to stay afloat. Her fair skin sparkled under the sun. It was a breathtaking sight. Di Fui's heart pounded in excitement as he stood watching her swim. "Baby, why did you go swimming so early?" he asked with a smile. He started to think if he should join her in the lake. He had just made love to her not long ago, but his fierce desire started to ignite again. He wanted her. He was even thinking about making love to her in the lake. Di Fui knew that he was desperate, like a famished wolf that could not wait to indulge in its prey. In the lake, Gu Shijiu gave him a wave with a smile. "Fui, will you join me?" Di Fui froze momentarily. He somehow recalled that Gu Shijiu had been addressing him as the Devil King recently. It had been a very long time since she called him by his name. The familiarity was overwhelming. He stood in a daze by the lake. Gu Shijiu tilted her head in confusion. "What is wrong? Don't you want to swim with me?" Di Fui sat down by the water and sighed. "I feel quite tired today. You should keep swimming. I will join you later." Gu Shijiu did not want to trouble him anymore and continued her swim. She thought she would try to impress him with her excellent swimming skills and fancy moves to cheer him up. Her every move was captivating. In a twist, she turned around and kept her face up, revealing her elegant body that was loosely covered and offering a fair display of her bosom. With another turn, she dived into the water head-on, thus revealing her ample hips for a moment. Her hips were perfectly shaped, which made his blood boil with lust. Suddenly, she raised her long legs above the water, drawing his attention to her body even more. In those brief moments, Di Fui could already feel his body burning. He wanted her so badly. He suddenly thought that perhaps he should jump into the lake just to calm his desire in the cold water. With a sigh, he waved back at her and said, "Shijiu, come up here." Gu Shijiu agreed promptly. She was only wearing a loose top and a pair of loose pants. Nonetheless, her soaked clothes were tightly wrapped on her skin, revealing her seductive figure. She came up to him and asked, "Fui, what is the matter?" The look in Di Fui's eyes darkened. "Baby, how do you normally address me? Can you address me like you used to before?" Gu Shijiu thought about it for a moment with her head tilted. "Celestial Masters Wa," she said with a smile. Di Fui smiled at her, too. "That is it," he answered while locking his eyes on her. He then invited her to sit down next to him. "Come here. Sit next to me. We need to talk." "All right." Gu Shijiu walked towards him and was ready to sit down when a seven-colored light suddenly flashed before her eyes. The light completely surrounded her. It was all too sudden and too close, so she had no chance to escape. Surrounded by the light, she could feel her entire body burning in flames. She screamed out loud and wanted to jump into the water to ease the pain. However, the seven-colored ray had completely bound her, restricting her even from the slightest movement. Her skin was slashed and cut as the result of the violent light, thus causing her a considerable amount of pain. Blinded by the seven-colored light, she called out, "Celestial Master Zhua, what are you doing?" Di Fui slowly rose and threw an icy look at her. "Yunqing Luo, did you really think that I would not know it is you?" Stunned, the female quickly lifted her head. "How did you recognize me?" Yunqing Luo thought that she had set up the illusion remarkably well. Di Fui smiled as she glared at her. "Both of you are completely different, why are you so surprised that I can recognize you?" Initially, Di Fui could not recognize her. After all, it was a dream that originated from his previous sexual encounter with Gu Shizhou. Besides that, he was aware that he was just dreaming, hence, he did not find it suspicious when he saw Gu Shizhou swimming in the lake. However, he began to feel that things were strange when he was about to enter the lake. Gu Shizhou usually dressed appropriately. She was also a rather prim and proper person, hence, she would not seduce others in such an overt manner. Of course, since he was aware that it was a dream, it was reasonable for Gu Shizhou to behave slightly differently. Therefore, he needed to test the water again to find out if he was right. He was finally certain that it was Yunqing Luo disguising as Gu Shizhou when she addressed him as Celestial Master Zhua. Needless to say, he was shocked that Yunqing Luo managed to enter his dream. Furthermore, he noticed that his body temperature was rising rapidly. It was the symptom of consuming an aphrodisiac. It was rather uncommon for him to be poisoned, so he tried to sense his internal bodhi's environment and realized his blood circulated at a high speed. He could also feel energetic worm-like creatures moving in his circulatory system. Wherever the worms went felt swollen and hot. Also, it was a chilly day, but he was sweating. Hence, he knew that Yunqing Luo tricked him. But how did it happen? Since Yunqing Luo's trap had been exposed, she decided not to hide it anymore. She slowly walked over with a pair of charming eyes and asked, "Celestial Master Zhua, are you feeling uneasy?" Her rather hoarse voice was not very seductive to Di Fui, though it might be sweet for some perverts. Di Fui replied as he watched her getting closer to him, "When did you poison me?" "Yunqing Luo, are you not afraid that I will shred your soul into pieces?" His tone was gentle, but his words were ruthless. Yunqing Luo paused for a moment, she did not dare to step closer when she thought about the seven-colored power he possessed. However, she seemed to recall something all of a sudden and chuckled. "Fui, I am not afraid of anything now." She smiled evilly and continued, "Celestial Master Zhua, I just want you. Am willing to pay any price just to have you, even if I need to trade my soul to the devils." Di Fui looked at her as if he was looking at a crazy woman. His fingers slowly grasped together with seven-colored rays glowing from his fingertips. It seemed that he was going to attack her at any time. Yunqing Luo did not notice the danger at first but seemed to laugh slightly later. "Celestial Master Zhua, do you want to kill me? Let me tell you the truth, you can't survive even if you kill me." Di Fui frowned. Yunqing Luo smiled. "You must be thinking this is your dream, and you can control everything. Is that not the case?" Di Fui asked calmly. "Of course not. Celestial Master Zhua, this is not your dream. You are in my preset illusion. If you do not have the antidote, you will never wake up. You will suffer here forever." Di Fui's heart sank at the thought of being stuck here with her. He was surprised that he was tricked even though he had been very cautious. Since Yunqing Luo had certainly executed this plan out very well, she would definitely rub it in his face. Indeed, Yunqing Luo continued, "Do you know why the poison is named irreversible? It is because we can't go back once it is started. No other woman can enter the illusion, hence, I'm the only one that can help you now. An expert taught me this, and I needed to trade my soul and blood as payment. He made a spell and cast it on a beast for me. The poisonous blood of the beast you slaughtered earlier had entered your body once you killed it." Di Fui asked as he was trying to clear the poison silently, "So, you used the beast earlier in order to cast the illusion on me?" The one almost killed you. Yes, that was it. It was so lazy to move. That is why I knew where to find it and intentionally woke it up. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates, better experience please click for visiting. That was the trap. Yunqing Luo was indeed obsessed with getting him. Did you not worry that I could not save you in time? Yunqing Luo chuckled, I was well prepared. If you could not save me, I could escape anyway. But as it was ferocious, I knew that you would definitely kill it. Di Fui pursed his lips. Although he did not express his emotions, the sweat on his forehead showed the chaotic circumstance that he found himself in. Yunqing Luo had a perfect plan. She knew she was still useful, and Di Fui would not watch her die, hence, she took the risk. But who was the psychopath who gave her such a dirty idea? It was a potent poison. Di Fui was very knowledgeable, so he knew that there was no way to clear the poison or even soothe the effect. Although he tried his best to suppress it, his sweat had soaked his clothes, and his blood was circulating like a roller coaster. Yunqing Luo did not stop staring at him, and she could notice every little change in his body. She knew the power of her poison, and she knew that he could not take it. No man could. She checked the time and realized that it was almost the perfect time for her to act. She stepped closer and spoke again, Celestial Master Zhua, I'm the only one who can help you. Do not worry, we are just having sex in this illusion, you are not betraying her. She will never know, so don't push me away. Her eyes were very seductive as her body slowly drew closer to Di Fui. Are you suffering? You will be fine as long as you make love to me. You might even become more powerful than before. Are you not afraid that I'll kill you later? Di Fui was sweating as he asked. Yunqing Luo laughed out loud as she lifted her head. I have paid my dues to get this poison. I'll die right after we have sex, and my souls will disappear forever. Di Fui was pissed. You are insane. Celestial Master Zhua, I am crazy. I'm crazy about you. I'm willing to be your antidote, I'll please you the way you want me to, and no one will never know. Yunqing Luo was like the witch who tried to persuade Xia Hua to take the forbidden fruit. Her voice words were certainly alluring to any man. I'm fine with you imagining that I look like her. In fact, that is my physical outlook to you right now. As she was walking closer, Di Fui was sweating terribly as if he could not control his mind anymore. He contemplated his options, one was a dead end, and the other was a happy playground. Even a lunatic knew which one to choose. Di Fui was very smart, and he always made wise decisions. Therefore, Yunqing Luo was very confident of the answer that he would choose. He would definitely agree with her demand. Everything would be worth it as long as they made love this one time. Slowly, she leaned on Di Fui and attempted to hug him. Celestial Master Zhua, a sudden change happened at this very moment. Just as she was about to place her hands on him, a seven-colored ray was launched all of a sudden that coiled around Yunqing Luo's arms. It caused her to feel a sharp pain. When she opened her eyes, she was suspended in midair. What followed her was an icy phrase. Yunqing Luo, you are disgusting. Get off. Apparently, Di Fui's spell was powerful and ruthless. As she opened her eyes in midair, she noticed that her arms were torn apart from her body with blood gushing out at both ends. Yunqing Luo was surprised that Di Fui could still hurt her in her own illusion. All of a sudden, there was a huge hole in the sunny sky, and she was helplessly sucked toward it. There was no way for her to return even though she tried to resist the force. Di Fui, you will die. You will die if you don't make love to me. She was screaming, with all of her energy. Di Fui continued to push her into the giant hole. He did not even bother to respond to what she had said. The giant hole was a torturous place, and Yunqing Luo's soul would burn in there for 49 days until it vanished forever. And, just like that, Yunqing Luo disappeared. At this point, the poison that Yunqing Luo had used was starting to take a toll on Di Fui as he felt as if he was going to explode. His eyes suddenly focused on the lake, and he wanted to jump into it. However, he could not do that at that very moment. Something was strange about the lake. Perhaps, it might aggravate the situation. He struggled to get up and began to find his way out. Half an hour later, he was still clueless. He knew it was a nightmare, but he just could not wake up. The tent was burning, the grass was hot, and even the lake was boiling. It was frustrating, and due to the extreme heat, he began to have an illusion. Every single illusion was seductive as he saw Gu Shizhou everywhere. Initially, he could not help but rush over to hug her, only to find that she disappeared again and again. The entire experience was tormenting. It was indeed playing out the way Yunqing Luo had said. He was left there alone in that beautiful place. Even if Gu Shizhou realized something was wrong after making the cure for herself, she could not enter the illusion to save him. The only hope now was that he wished he could enter her dream. That was still a possibility for him. If he wanted to enter her dream, he would have to wait until she was fast asleep. But when would that be? The alchemy process was long and tiring, and not to mention very physically draining. She would definitely take a rest when she was done, right? It would be better if he could watch her first before entering her dream as opposed to directly entering her dream, where he could not tell what was happening around her. The skill of entering other people's dreams required a great amount of spiritual power to perform, so he would not be able to use it repeatedly. Desperately, Di Fui tried to use his spiritual power to put his burning desire to an end while calculating the time he had left. He thought that she would be asleep very soon, so he started to perform the skill right away. To his surprise, he was caught in this inescapable illusion with no way to enter her dream. He sat there, observing the beautiful scenery around him while cold sweat started to soak his forehead. This time, he was afraid that there was no way that he could escape. Suddenly, he heard a voice. "Do you regret your decision now?" Actually, Yunqing Luo was right. No one from the outside world would know about what happened between the two of you. Why do you have to stand your ground so firmly? If you change your mind, you can still release her. Di Fui sat up straight while cautiously looking around. Who is it? Show yourself. Could there be another person in that space? No one answered, so he could not tell if anyone else was really present. However, the same voice would speak over and over again every few minutes. It was rather annoying after a few times. "I will never do anything that I will regret later," Di Fui finally answered. "I can let her out, but I will shatter her soul into pieces in the most brutal way. When my needs are not fulfilled, I can always distract myself by torturing her," he calmly said. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates, better experience. Please click for visiting. The voice finally stopped talking. Di Fui noticed it and quickly asked, "Who are you?" The voice remained quiet. "If you refuse to tell me, I will get Yunqing Luo out here and kill her right away." The voice answered idly, "Her life has nothing to do with me. You can do anything to her as you please." At first, Di Fui thought that the voice was preset by Yunqing Luo to help her in times of danger. Now, he was unsure. He continued to ask a few more questions, but the voice never appeared again. No matter how he threatened it, it never resurfaced. The vast space was all for him, alone. His senses became more and more sensitive to danger, so he closed his eyes to try to assess his environment, and for the first time, he felt hopeless. Images of Gu Shizhou started to flash before his eyes, haunting him. He felt frustrated as he had not had the chance to explain to her that she was the only one that he truly loved, no one else. When she was done producing the cure, the first thing that would happen was that she would see him asleep. In fact, Yunqing Luo would be sleeping too. Knowing her nature, she would definitely find it inappropriate to interrupt him while he slept. She would probably greet the two guards and leave swiftly with Zhu Duqing. Even if she noticed that something was not right about him, there was nothing she could do. Her spiritual power was not high enough to support the dream-entering spell. Di Fui knew her well, indeed. When the alchemy process was finally completed, she heaved a long sigh of relief. She wanted to swallow the pill right away but hesitated. Di Fui had been working just as hard to help her produce the pill. Hence, she felt that she should show it to him first. Therefore, she held the pill in one hand and knocked on the bamboo wall with another in a particular pattern, 3 long knocks followed by 4 short ones. It was a sign that she wanted to exit. Chapter 2402, The Search, 2. Zhu Duqing had a special connection to the bamboo house, so he quickly made an opening for Gu Shijiu after he heard her knocking. He smiled as soon as he saw Gu Shijiu slowly emerge from his soundproof fortress. Master, congratulations on the successful alchemy. Gu Shijiu was tired, but her spirits remained high. Where are they? Zhu Duqing hissed to convey his disapproval. Di Fui seems to be resting, more accurately, he is meditating. Yunqing Luo is hurt. The men are keeping an eye on her. They are there. Di Fui was sitting at a spot that was not too far away from the bamboo house. Gu Shijiu spotted him almost immediately. Di Fui sat with his legs crossed and his eyes closed. He sat there calmly, like a man in enlightenment. Gu Zijia's heart skipped a beat. She always found him unusually charming when he sat like that, it was like someone she knew from a long time ago. Quickly, she moved her eyes away from him and decided to leave him alone. She should not interrupt the man in his meditation. Distracting him could waste his efforts. Zhu Duqing was still beside her. He took a look at the pill in her hand and asked, "Is this the pill that you have just made? Does it work? Should we wake Yunqing Luo up and let her have a look?" "No need. I know what I am doing," Gu Shijiu turned down his suggestion. She was confident in her abilities. Also, she did not want to talk to Yunqing Luo anymore. She then asked Zhu Duqing to secure the perimeters while she went looking for a quiet place to take the pill. After that, she proceeded to use her spiritual power to set the pill in effect. About an hour later, she was delighted to find out that the toxins in her body had been completely cured. She could finally feel a sense of relief. "I am well," she exclaimed, with a hopeful leap into the air. Her voice echoed, so everyone could hear it. Zhu Duqing congratulated her first. Then, both escorts, Jin and Hua, heard her and quickly approached to congratulate her as well. Gu Shijiu noted their kindness with thanks. Their teamwork had left her with a great positive impression. The men were still responsible for Yunqing Luo's safety, so they quickly returned to their spot after some small talk. They did not want to comment too much on the situation. The Devil King was only close by, so he should be the one to do the talking. They should only be involved upon request. Also, the Devil King had always been unpredictable. Hence, they could barely understand what he was thinking. Therefore, they dared not take the matter lightly for fear that they might ruin his plan. "Master Shijiu, now that you are healthy again, should we leave? This is not a place that we should extend our stay," Zhu Duqing proposed. Gu Shijiu gave Di Fui another look and realized that he was still meditating. He did not even move his eyes. Their departure from this place was certainly unrelated to Di Fui. Gu Shijiu thought about it and decided not to disturb him. She talked to Guardian Jean and told him that she was about to leave. Panicked, he said, "Miss Gu, can you leave when the Devil King is awake? He worried about you a lot, at least tell him that you are well and healthy before you leave." Gu Shijiu politely replied, "There is no need for that. You can tell him on my behalf. I have other matters to attend to, so I really should not stay. Please let him know that I will surely repay his kindness someday for what he has done for me today." She then offered him a few bottles of medicine. These pills can cure many types of common toxins. You will be cured, as long as the toxin is not something complicated. This is my token of appreciation for your help today. Guardian Jean was well aware of her vast knowledge in the field of medicine, and particularly in the use of poisons. The pills must be something precious that he could not possibly obtain from anywhere. Therefore, he accepted the gift happily and thanked her. "All right, Master Shijiu. Let us go," Zhu Duqing urged her again, somewhat impatiently. Gu Shijiu took another look at Di Fui, who was still unconscious. She finally made up her mind and decided to leave with Zhu Duqing. "Master Shijiu, Where do you plan to go after this? I will find a quiet place to practice and recover. She needed to go back to heaven and from there, return to the Saha world again. According to the rules, she was not allowed to leave the Saha world for more than 6 months. It had already been 2 years. She could not help but wonder if the Saha world was in terrible chaos. The only reason for her return to heaven was to recover so that she would be able to return to the Saha world at full strength. Her spiritual power was already at level 9. If she worked hard, she could achieve level 10 in no time. And when she finally achieved level 10, she would then face a catastrophe and ascend to heaven. That was the usual practice, but was it the same in the Shura world? I know a quiet place. It is a place with a strong spiritual aura. Zhu Duqing knew about the Shura world very well, so he could show her many places that not many people knew about. He was confident that not many knew about the secret place that he was about to show her, not even Di Fui, the one who was known to be knowledgeable about everything. Zhu Duqing was proud of himself for a moment. He continued to emphasize the advantages of different pieces of land for her to choose from. Confidently, he offered to take her wherever she wanted to go. However, to his dismay, Gu Shizhou did not respond to his enthusiasm. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates, better experience please click for visiting. This man is so reckless. How can he be meditating so deeply in such a dangerous place? He does not even have someone to guard him. Is this because his upbringing forced him to be fearless? Her thoughts continued. He kept saying that he cared about her injury, but instead of protecting her, he fell into a deep state of meditation. The scene was similar to a woman who had just given birth and left the operation room, only to realize that her husband was sleeping soundly outside. She knew that he must be tired, but he would not be so deeply asleep while she was busy trying to save her life, right? It did not seem right. Di Fui would not do so. Was there something wrong? Master Shizhou, are you listening to me? Zhu Duqing had to wave his hand to see if she was paying attention. I need to go back to have a look at Di Fui. Gu Shizhou left him alone and teleported. Zhu Duqing was shocked. They were almost at the end of the tunnel by that time. Even though he admired her teleportation ability, it was a burden for him, too, as he found it hard to keep up with her. His complexion was good. His pulse was steady. His eyelids were sealed with no movement from his eyeball. He did not look unwell. However, there was no way she could wake him up. Gu Shizhou had been circling him for 8 rounds and tried every possible way to wake him up. She even used her knowledge of acupuncture points and applied it between his thumb and index finger as well as the middle of his upper lip. He was still unresponsive, not even moving his lashes. It was like his soul had just left his body. This should not be happening, no matter how focused he was on his meditation. Miss Gu, Yunqing Luo is in the same condition, she is not responding at all. Guardian Jean came reporting about what he just found. Could their souls have left their bodies together to do something? Zhu Duqing, who had made his way back, suggested. Did he tell you anything before he started meditating? Gu Shizhou asked Guardian Jean. Chapter 2404, The Search, 4, Nothing Noteworthy. He only asked me to keep an eye on Yunqing Luo. Guardian Jean was not too concerned as he shared what he could recall. Miss Gu, sometimes the Devil King will leave his body behind to conduct an investigation. I believe this time is the same. It did not sound right to Gu Shizhou, however. If Di Fui were going to take Yunqing Luo's soul away, he would not choose a spot that was so far away from her. He should be sitting next to her. Doing so would make it easier for his men to guard the surrounding, as his body would become an easy target without his soul inside it. Di Fui would not do something so stupid in such a dangerous place. Had they fallen into some evil trick? The trick must have been so carefully planned that even experienced warriors did not realize that these two people's souls were taken away from their bodies. It was even more impressive since the escorts had never left Yunqing Luo alone the entire time. Gu Shizhou wanted to ask them for more information, but she was distracted when Di Fui's body suddenly trembled involuntarily. Cold sweat started to soak his robes. She grabbed his hand and was surprised by his burning palm. Miss Gu, Yunqing Luo seems to be in trouble. Her body is shaking violently. Also, her pulse is getting weaker. Guardian Hua came reporting in a panicked state. Their souls had indeed left their bodies together and were now caught in what they could only assume was a troubling situation. How complicated could the situation be that even Di Fui was unable to solve it? Gu Shijiu tried to calm down, though her heart was still pounding in a surge of anxiety. It was not the time to find out how his soul left his body. Instead, she needed to know how to find them and save them. Gu Shijiu used the soul tracking spell to start looking for the lost souls. She should be able to detect their location as long as they were still within the range of 1,000 miles. However, both attempts failed miserably. Apparently, they must have been trapped in some wizardry barrier that was more than 1,000 miles away. If he really needed to go that far to attend to something urgent, he would have told the two men first before departing. He had disappeared without informing any of his men. Therefore, it was reasonable to believe that their souls were currently trapped in some wizardry barrier. Gu Shijiu quickly explored her surroundings but could not find any wizardry barrier. How was she going to find them? His soul must not be too far away from his body for a period longer than 24 hours, after which time, his body would be damaged irreversibly. Since Gu Shijiu had spent 4 hours in the bamboo house trying to produce the cure, she knew that she had about 20 hours to find his soul before it was too late. Desperately, she tried to recall everything that she knew in order to find him, but her spiritual power was too weak to perform the spells that she needed. Master, I have an idea. Maybe it will help you find him. The firmament stone suddenly spoke to her in her mind. Gu Shijiu felt like hope had returned. How? Master, before I tell you, I need to ask you some questions. Will you choose to save him in times of great danger, regardless of what has happened between him and Yunqing Luo? She was surprised but did not hesitate. Yes. She would never abandon him, no matter what. The firmament stone seemed relieved. Regardless of the price that you have to pay? It had to be completely certain. Of course. Because she loved him, Gu Shijiu could set him free if he had indeed fallen for someone else. She was willing to part ways with him and become strangers again, as long as he was happy. Furthermore, she loved him enough to risk her life for him, so she would pay any price just to make sure he was safe, including her own life. The firmament stone was finally relieved. That is good, Master. Now listen to me. Chapter 2405, an abnormal soul-tracking spell. The firmament stone had tasked Gu Shijiu to set up the most secured array formation possible using stones. No one would be able to break into this fortress, and Gu Shijiu was finally able to utilize her mastery in this craft fully. Consequently, the three gentlemen found themselves isolated outside of the array formation. No one was allowed to enter. Zhu Duqing thought he knew a lot about the techniques Gu Shijiu used in forming these barriers. To his dismay, he had no clue how to break through the one in front of him. The two guardians felt the same. Equally confused, they could only stare at the array formation without a clue. Inside the formation, Gu Shijiu was still wondering what was going on. Was the firmament stone playing a prank on her? How could there be such an abnormal soul-tracking spell that required an array formation of such fortitude? She then listened to the explanation from the firmament stone about how to find Di Fui. The method that the firmament stone had proposed to her was rather exceptional. She was required to sit face-to-face with Di Fui, both completely naked. More accurately speaking, she had to sit in his lap to be as close as she could be with him. The more skin contact, the better. At first, she felt that it was definitely a prank. However, the firmament stone kept reassuring her that it was the fastest way to track him down. It even said that she was the only one who could save him. And if she did not act swiftly, she would regret it for the rest of her life. Gu Shijiu began to panic as the firmament stone continued to tell her more. Fear had completely dominated her ability to think logically. Although, between the mess, she sensed a feeling of familiarity. It was as if she had been through a similar situation many years ago. She must not lose him again, she thought. Therefore, Gu Shizhou was determined to do as told. She followed the firmament stone's instruction to the last letter. Earlier, Gu Shizhou had asked her 3 comrades to guard the place and made sure that the array formation would not be disrupted. The 2 guardians agreed promptly, but Zhu Duqing was unimpressed. Gu Shizhou had never properly told him how she planned to save Di Fui, so he was not quite certain about leaving her alone with the man. Thus, he offered to stay with her and Di Fui to be their assistant should anything go astray. Gu Shizhou certainly did not let him hang around to witness the entire process. But having been familiarized with him, she knew that he would definitely want a clear answer. Unfortunately, she was not able to explain the entire situation to him. Therefore, she decided to send him out using her teleportation technique. When they were out, she reassured him with a pat on the shoulder and said, "Be patient, my disciple. Do as I say, and stay here to guard the place. If you perform well, I will teach you everything you need to know about the facial disguise technique. If not, I will not accept you as my disciple anymore." Zhu Duqing was astonished. However, before he could say anything, Gu Shizhou was already gone. She went back into the array formation using her teleportation technique and shut the entrance completely. Zhu Duqing circled the array formation many times but was still unable to gather any clues as to how to escape. Finally, he decided to stop trying and stood patiently with his fan in his hand. Nonetheless, numerous thoughts circled his mind. If it was only a rescue mission, was it necessary to send everyone out? How was she going to save Di Fui? The 2 guardians noticed his disappointment. Concerned that he would intervene and disrupt the plan set in place by Gu Shizhou, they walked up to him and started to distract him with some small talk. After clearing the place, Gu Shizhou finally put Di Fui down on a flat surface. She barely saw him sitting so quietly. She had been moving around him a lot, but he did not even move one bit. He still sat in his meditating position with his eyes closed, like the jade statue of a Buddha. Inspired by the familiarity of the scene, Gu Shizhou could somehow recall the flashback of a jade statue that she once saw in a small pavilion. The vivid image shocked her as she was usually unable to see the images clearly when she experienced hallucinations, but this time was completely different. She saw that the jade statue and Di Fui looked almost identical. The major difference was their attires, one was in white and another in purple. Chapter 2406, An Abnormal Soul Tracking Spell. 2. Master, do you still remember the steps I explained to you earlier? Do I need to repeat them to you again? The firmament stone was worried, as the steps were rather complicated. Even the firmament stone, which was known to have the storage capacity of a computer, found that the steps were difficult to master. Hence, she did not expect Gu Shizhou, who was only a human though smart, to be able to ascertain it in one go. Let us do it this way. When you are working on it, I shall stay with you at all times to guide you through it. Ah, you. The firmament stone was abruptly switched off. Gu Shizhou had turned off all of its senses and kept it away in her storage bag. It was a rescue operation, so she was willing to tolerate being naked. Their position was, however, really awkward for her. Although they had slept together once, it was a very long time ago. Furthermore, she was quite a traditional woman, so she still felt that it was not quite right to strip him naked. Moreover, she was still under the impression that he was together with someone else. Di Fui, I am only doing this to save your life. I have to. Please know that I do not mean to take advantage of you in your current condition, Gu Shizhou explained herself, though she was unsure if he was able to listen. Di Fui, as before, was completely motionless and unresponsive. If you remain quiet, I will assume that you agree to this, so you cannot come back looking for me to stir any trouble. Determined, she started to take off his robes. His outer robes were loosely designed with special material, making it easy for her to take them off. The real problem was his undershirt, which was tightly fitted, so it became more difficult to take it off when he was in a seated position. It seemed like an impossibility to do so without ripping it off him. While she was taking off his robes, some flashbacks occurred again. In the images, she was trying to take off the robes of a jade statue. My celestial brother, you look nice even without your clothes. Your robes seem nice. Let me wear them. As the flashback continued, she became more surprised. She could see that the incident happened while she was still on Earth, right after she attached her soul to a new body. There was still a large, red birthmark on her face at the time. Di Fui was the jade statue in the flashback. Gu Zijia's hands started to tremble. From the hints given to her by the firmament stone, she had already figured out that Di Fui was the one that she had been thinking about, Huang Tuesday. However, that was only a guess. Without any memory of him, the feeling was not very intense when she first made the realization. This time, the moment she recognized the man in her flashbacks, she was immediately excited and saddened at the same time. If she was not mistaken, the jade status must be Huang Tu, who was busy cultivating at the time. That was how they first met. The flashbacks lasted longer this time around, for about 4 to 5 minutes. She saw that she had completely stripped off every piece of clothing on the jade status and wore the robes on herself. She even caressed the face of the statue and touched the statue's private part out of curiosity. Before she left, she even kissed the statue. Every scene played back like a classic black and white movie, and as the images flashed before her eyes, her heart began to race. She was falling for him all over again. Without thinking, she leaned forward and planted a soft kiss on Di Fui's lips, like how she did to the jade statue. She did so with the exact same movements as before and the same position. After the kiss, she was surprised to find out that Di Fui's lips were burning hot. His peaceful expression had concealed the fact that he was suffering. Without the kiss, she would never have found out that his body temperature was actually scorching hot. What was his soul undergoing? Gu Shizhou dared not waste another minute in her contemplation. She was still stuck at the removal of his undershirt and desperately ripped the shirt open and took it off. Finally, all of his clothes were removed. Di Fui's body was undeniably well built. He looked fit without his clothes on. Although he was muscular, he was not too bulky either. Every inch of his strong muscles was perfectly shaped, even the most professional bodybuilder would not look half as good as he did. Although they had slept together before, it was the first time that she removed his clothes. Gu Shizhou was embarrassed and excited at the same time. She tried very hard to ignore the strange feelings that crept up on her. Slowly, she entangled herself in his arms. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates, better experience please click for visiting. Gu Shizhou just had to curse the firmament stone for proposing such a ridiculous idea. However, she did as told and pulled him close. Their bodies were finally in contact with one another. She could feel his breaths very clearly against her skin. Although she knew she should not be feeling aroused, she could not help it. Determined to proceed with the rescue, she stopped her mind from going places and focused on the steps that she should be taking. She did everything that the firmament stone had instructed her to do. Every step was accurate and correct. When she was finally done, their bodies seemed to be attached like a pair of conjoined twins. Their legs were crossed together, and so were their arms. She held him tightly, just as instructed. If others were to see them in this position, they would definitely think that they were conducting the double physical and spiritual cultivation. Furthermore, from their sitting positions, she was the one who initiated it. Before Gu Shizhou started the mission, she had already decided that once everything was over, she had to be the first one to wake up. She would then dress herself up in the fastest way that she could so that he would not see what they were actually doing. It would be an embarrassment if he did. Gu Shizhou had made many assumptions about the situation that Di Fui might be trapped in. For example, she thought that he might be caught in a sea of flames or a siege surrounded by terrible beasts. He could have been injured too, perhaps by a creature or person who was more powerful. She also assumed that he would be trapped with Yun Qingluo. Maybe this was Yun Yanli's evil plan all the while, which led to an inevitable fight. Di Fui possessed great kung fu, but he might not be as powerful as Yun Yanli right now. Fortunately, he was definitely smarter. She believed that he was able to orchestrate careful strategies and keep himself safe. Anyone that was able to dominate a fight with him must be someone or something extraordinary, and very unpredictable. All in all, she had made many assumptions about the worst kind of situation that he might be in. She was well prepared to get herself involved in a fight between life and death. Every possible scenario that she had conjured in her mind was the worst-case scenario. The path that guided her in was a visible mass of clouds. She had to go through many challenges to get near him at the end of the demanding course. To her utter surprise, she saw him sitting peacefully by a lake. It looked as if he was cultivating. Gusts of wind blew by her face, immersing her with a pleasant scent of fresh, blossoming flowers. The scenery was as spectacular, too beautiful to be absorbed all at once. From her point of view, the lake, the willows, the flowers, the greens, and the man had made up a beautiful painting in perfect tones and composition. She could not keep her eyes away. Gu Shizhou gazed at him with her fists clenched. She thought that he had left his body behind to come here and meditate. This must be one of his common practices, as the two guardians had clearly told her that the Devil King would sometimes leave his physical body and wander around with his soul. There he was, sitting and cultivating. His incredible improvement must have something to do with his unique ways of practice. He seemed at ease. As for her, she was embarrassed by all that she had been through to get here. She still could not get over the fact that they were naked. She started blaming the firmament stone for tricking her into saving him. It had made the situation sound way worse, keeping her in suspense. In the end, the situation was the direct opposite of what she thought it to be. Speaking of which, Yunqing Luo was nowhere to be seen. If they had left their bodies behind together, they should be together with him, right? The firmament stone had clearly asked her before, that no matter what they were doing, she would still step in and save him. Her answer might sound carefree, but she was actually a little worried. She was worried that they might be making love to one another when she came by, or that they were having some sweet little moments together. She was mentally prepared to witness that before her eyes. From the way the firmament stone asked her questions, she had already figured out that they would surely be together. However, she looked around and was overwhelmed by the slopes that were ablaze with flower blossoms and some dense trees. A white tent on the slope had caught her attention. Gu Shizhou could immediately tell that it was Di Fuyus. If he even had the time to make and secure a tent, he should be doing just fine. Perhaps, Yunqing Luo could be in the tent right now. Was this a part of Di Fuyus' date? Had he left his body behind and took her soul with him to go on a date in the wild? If that were the case, was it inappropriate for Gu Shizhou to be here? Gu Shizhou wanted to turn around and just leave. However, her reasoning stopped her from acting impulsively. She had been through a lot to be here, so she definitely needed to find out more about him before leaving. There she stood, contemplating if she should approach his tent using her teleportation technique to see if Yunqing Luo was in the tent. If she was really in there, then there was no need for Gu Shizhou to show up. She could find her way back just like how she came in and pretended nothing ever happened. She could also avoid the awkwardness since she would wake up first. She was caught in a daze when Di Fui turned around and saw her there. Gu Shizhou was still figuring out her next step, but it was all too late. Their eyes met. Her heart raced at that very moment. She had not had a clear view of his face, but she decided that she needed to stand her ground. "Mister, you look at ease here. It is such a carefree day." Gu Shizhou was relieved to see him all well and safe but was also irritated at the back of her mind. A little bit of sarcasm would be appropriate to cover her embarrassment. Di Fui did not seem to respond in kind, however. The look in his eyes was rather stern, almost lethal. The icy look in his eyes made her skin creep. Gu Shizhou could almost feel his hatred. Troubled, she wondered if her presence was actually a disturbance. The look in his eyes was simply unforgiving. It was as if he wanted her dead. Obviously irritated, she gave him a tight smile and continued to bombard him with a series of ironic questions. "You must be here to practice. Perhaps, you are here with a friend? The body that you so impulsively left behind looked as good as dead. Your men were terribly worried as there was no way they could wake you up. They thought you were caught in some serious trouble. They asked for my help, right after I was done with the alchemy. I agreed to help, just as you have helped me many times before. Now that I know that you are safe, I should not be here to interrupt you anymore. You may proceed without me. Farewell. She was terribly embarrassed and was ready to leave right away. Also, she decided that she needed to give the firmament stone a lesson for tricking her about the situation. Gu Shijiu. She could hear Di Fui's hoarse voice, calling out to her from afar. His voice sounded rough and harsh, like he was a bit unwell. However, he was still charming to her. Nevertheless, she could tell from his tone that he was somewhat dubious of her existence. Gu Shijiu raised her eyebrow at him and nodded briefly. She did not use any facial disguise technique, so he should be able to recognize her just fine. Nonetheless, his expression clearly showed his disbelief. Was he surprised by her presence here in his space? Now that he had already seen her, Gu Shijiu no longer felt the need to hide anything. She looked at him proudly and asked, "Why did you call me?" Slowly, Di Fui paced towards her. His grudge disappeared as soon as he could see her clearly. He was still gazing at her intensely. "Is it really you?" Gu Shijiu was thoroughly confused. What kind of situation was this? Chapter 2409, was something wrong with his memory? If she had a mirror with her, the first thing she would do was to take it out and have a look at herself to see what was really confusing him. Gu Shijiu touched her face intuitively and realized that there was nothing wrong. She frowned at him and asked, "Are you all right?" Wait, you do not look very well." Gu Shijiu finally noticed his pale complexion that would occasionally flush crimson. Also, his forehead was drenched in sweat. Before she knew what to do, she immediately teleported to his side and grabbed his wrist. "Let me check on you." Di Fui stood frozen and did not resist. He looked at her, and all he saw was her thick lashes. He then took a look at her puckered lips and her little finger that would naturally point upward every time she read his pulse. It was really her. She had made it here, surprisingly. It all happened so suddenly. Di Fui could not believe his eyes. At first, he thought that Yunqing Luo was finally smarter and managed to imitate all of Gu Zijia's little movements to look more convincing. After all, Yunqing Luo had single-handedly created this illusion. Anything was possible right now. As her soft fingers were placed gently on his wrist, he could feel his blood rushing in excitement. He wanted to hold her tightly in his arms, however, he needed to identify if she was really Gu Shijiu before making any approach. "Gu Shijiu, when I was trapped in my father's wizardry barrier many years ago, you visited me and released a ferocious leopard to attack me. We even fought, and my clothes were burned. In the end, I only had my underwear," he slowly described, while gazing at her intensely. Gu Shijiu was reading his pulse when he started reminiscing the past. She did not feel that it was the right time to do so, however. Was something wrong with his memory? Gu Shijiu did not look up at him. "You did not get the facts right. The creature that I released was actually a black python. I remember it clearly because the python was the one that I personally captured. Also, when you lost all of your clothes, you were still wearing a band that managed to cover your tummy. It was not your underwear," she explained. After Gu Shijiu managed to assess his condition, she finally looked up and met his big, shiny eyes. Her heart raced a little. It was all involuntary. All she had done was correct a couple of facts, so she did not understand why he had to stare at her so intensely as if he had just hit the jackpot. From his pulse, she could tell that he was poisoned. Could the toxins have affected his emotions? He seemed to struggle to express himself. This poison was also new to Gu Shijiu, so she needed to find out more about it in order to help him. She asked, "Which parts of your body are in pain?" All of a sudden, he gripped her wrist tightly and pulled her into his arms. He pulled her so hard that she almost hit her nose on his chest. "Ah, what are you trying to do?" Gu Shijiu did not see it coming. Desperately, she tried to break free from his embrace. However, he did not intend to let her go. He tightened his arms around her as if he had just found his savior. "Shijiu, help me," he whispered into her ear. She could clearly feel his warm breaths. He could finally be sure about her identity. He had never told anyone about that particular incident, not even his parents, as it was not something he wanted to share. Only the two of them knew about it. Hence, he had no intention of holding back his desires any longer. He had all the reasons he needed to be with her. "Shijiu, I am not feeling well." His voice was trembling and full of pity. Gu Shijiu was instantly overwhelmed by her maternal instinct. I am here for you. Be patient, and let me examine your condition. Once I know what is wrong, I can give you the correct medication," she stammered in response. His familiar breath on her skin and tight embrace made her heart pound in her chest. "There is no need for examination," he added. His lips were almost touching her ear. "I know the poison that has infected me. It is a love potion. It can only be cured if you and I perform the double physical and spiritual cultivation together." Di Fui tried to suppress his rising desire as he explained the situation to her as calmly as he could. He had been suppressing his desires for so long and started to feel a sense of hopelessness. It was completely out of his expectations that she would show up in this place. His long-felt desire could finally be satisfied. The moment he could finally be sure that it was really her, he could no longer control his desires. The only thing he desperately needed was her body. Unfortunately, there were still many misunderstandings between them that remained unsolved. Since he knew her well, he was certain that she would push him away if he skipped the explanations. Gu Shijiu was still shocked by Di Fui's revelation on the type of poison that had infected him. His words echoed in her ears and remained unprocessed. She was still trying to think it through. Did he say the love potion? Damn it! It could not be. Does he not have any way to resist it? How could he be so easily affected? She had not forgotten about their first night together. It happened all because of his consumption of an animal's penis, causing him to have a strong sexual urge. At that time, she had volunteered herself since she thought that they were engaged. But was she going to do it again? She only agreed before because she felt that it was part of her responsibility as his fiancée. She wanted to cling on to him as she was worried that he might leave her. This time, since he already found his other half, Yunqing Luo, she no longer felt the need to offer herself to him. With a strong push, she finally broke free from his embrace. Di Fui's body was strongly affected by the love potion, so he barely had enough spiritual power and strength left to stop her. He took many steps backward while trying to steady himself from falling into the lake. He looked at her in disbelief. Do you still not want me?" Gu Shijiu took a deep breath to try and calm down. "Prince Nianma, if the double physical and spiritual cultivation is the only way to cure the toxins in your body, I am afraid that I am not the right candidate for the task. Keep it down for a moment, and I will look for Yunqing Luo. Her soul has also left the body, so she should be here with you. Where is she now? Let me get her here." She turned around and was ready to look for the woman who she thought should handle the job. If their souls had left their bodies at the same time, Yunqing Luo should not be too far away. It would not be a difficult search, she thought. Di Fui immediately grabbed her hand as soon as she turned away. This time, he held onto her hand so tightly that she could feel pain in her joints. "Gu Shijiu, are you really desperate to send me away? Won't you get jealous, picturing us doing the double physical and spiritual cultivation together?" Gu Shijiu was taken by surprise. Would she become jealous? She was certainly uncomfortable at the slightest thought of it. However, even though she found it hard to accept, it was the reality that she had to deal with right now. She is the one that you like, isn't she? I do not want to hinder you, she finally shared her thoughts after a long sigh. Is that why you chose to let go? Is it really so easy to let me go? Gu Shijiu, we have been in love since our previous lives. How can you give up on me so easily? Di Fui made his point clear. He looked hurt by her response. Am I not worthy of your effort? Do you really have to give up on us because of some minor problem? Gu Shijiu, I find your love hard to believe. If you loved me enough, you would not have let me go. Gu Shijiu did not know what to say, but tears started rolling in her eyes. I did not give up on you. If you had not fallen for someone else, I would never have let you go. Chapter 24:11, I only want you to be happy. When you went missing, I never stopped looking for you for the entire year. Did you know that I had been to almost every corner of the Shura world? I entered each path with hope that simply turned into disappointment every time I left a city. Did you know how difficult it was for me to come here and look for you in the Devil Kingdom? We finally met after so long, and the first thing that you said to me was, "What are you doing here?" You even said that it was over between us. You treated Yunqing Luo with care and pampered her in every way possible. I could see that very clearly. Obviously, I thought you did not want me anymore. Those sorrowful moments re-emerged, so she had to hold back the tears in her eyes. It was you who changed your mind first. How could you blame it on me? Di Fui, you cannot be so unreasonable. She then raised her hand to wipe away the tears that streamed down her cheeks. I let you go because I want to make things easier for you. I only want you to be happy. It was evident that she cared very much about him. She only wanted him to live a happy and blissful life, which was why she had to let him go. She even tried to save Yunqing Luo despite losing out on the love of her life to that woman. Surely that showed how unconditional her love was toward Di Fui. How could he be so unreasonable? If Gu Shijiu were an ordinary woman, she would probably just hit him the chest at that point. However, being the extraordinary person that she was, she wanted to kick Di Fui really hard right to show her resentment toward his actions. She wanted to make sure that he knew what she had been through for him. However, because he was still suffering from the love potion, so she decided to save the kicks for later. Shijiu, your love is my biggest fulfillment. Di Fui disregarded her resistance and pulled her into his arms once again. You are the only one that I have ever loved, no one else. Yunqing Luo saved my life, so I treated her like a sister in return. We have never shared any form of intimacy. Gu Shijiu was stunned by his comments. Could she believe what he said? She had seen and heard many things that were the opposite of what he claimed to have said. Furthermore, he led her to believe that those rumors were true. Shijiu, you cannot judge the situation solely based on what you see. Sometimes, what you see may not necessarily be the truth. Perhaps it is all but a show that is intended to deceive its viewers. You need to feel it with your heart and analyze the situation accordingly. Di Fui got to the bottom of it. He knew exactly what she was thinking of at that moment. Gu Shijiu remained silent. By that response, Di Fui knew that she was finally listening and was a little relieved. The poison that she made was one of a kind. We needed the blood from her heart to entice the silver ring crocodile, and we needed her alive. She was brought here to make amends for her wrongdoings by helping you create the cure, he added. Gu Shijiu was shocked. She gazed at him in astonishment. Was Yunqing Luo only here because they needed the blood from her heart? Was that the reason why Di Fui brought Yunqing Luo here? Flashbacks started to hit her as she recalled the situation when Di Fui finally drove the crocodile into taking the bait. Yunqing Luo was all tied up by Di Fui as soon as she arrived. Her clothes were untidy, and her complexion was as pale as a sheet. The situation back then was pretty dangerous. She had to focus on her fight with the crocodile, so she did not pay much attention to Yunqing Luo and thought that the crocodile injured her. Now that she started thinking about it, the little details seemed to prove that Di Fui was actually telling the truth. She never knew that the blood from Yunqing Luo's heart was needed to bait the crocodile. For ordinary people, they would probably lose their lives if blood was drawn in such a manner. Yunqing Luo was an exception, as her practice in kung fu and cultivation managed to save her life. Despite her abilities, the procedure still had to be conducted with special tools as a precautionary measure. Gu Shijiu finally understood why Di Fui had been so protective of Yunqing Luo. He needed to take the blood from her heart to get the cure for Gu Shijiu, so he needed to make sure that she was alive by keeping her out of danger. She finally understood his intention. She was smart enough to figure out the rest of the story from there, though she did not know how to feel about the situation. After a while, she suddenly asked, "Why did both of your souls leave the swamp together?" "I fell into her trap," Di Fui continued to enlighten her with a few details. He kept the story simple, but Gu Shijiu was still quite surprised and equally disturbed upon hearing about all that he had been through. She had never expected that Yunqing Luo would be so obsessed with Di Fui. In order to be with Di Fui, there was no limit to the price that she was willing to pay. She would manipulate her soul, even her pride, just to get what she wanted. Gu Shijiu shook her head to dismiss the thought. She could not understand Yunqing Luo at all. Meanwhile, she also proceeded to check Di Fui's pulse to find out more about the poison. It was really one of a kind. She could not think of any cure other than the double physical and spiritual cultivation. Once she was sure of his condition, she was surprised by the sudden emergence of a red wooden bed next to her. It looked quite solid and spacious enough for two of them to spend the night together. Then, he continued to show her to the side of the bed and sat her down. Their bodies were leaning against one another at the time. He held her tightly at the waist, and Gu Shijiu could immediately feel the warmth of his hand. His body temperature was abnormally high. She looked up, and their eyes locked in an intense gaze. Upon observing him more carefully, she realized that he started sweating more profusely than before. "What else do you want to know? Ask me everything." "I will tell you everything that I know," he added smilingly. He smiled at her sweetly, but Gu Shijiu was quite terrified by the immense desire in his eyes. It was as if she were a little prey that he would soon indulge in. She involuntarily shivered a little, while trying to avoid his eyes. "Nothing. Nothing else," she murmured. "Great." Relieved, Di Fui gave her another charming smile. He then put her down on the bed. "So, will you be helping me with the cure?" Di Fui asked the question courteously, but what he did was the complete opposite. He lay on top of her, seemingly taking the lead. His eyes were still filled with a burning desire, as if telling her that she had no way to escape from him this time. Gu Zijia's heart throbbed with excitement, and her face flushed crimson. She could clearly feel his erection since he was lying on top of her. I actually think there is another way to help you cure the toxins. I think that there should be another way." She spoke rather unconfidently. "Baby, this is the only way. It is the easiest and the most effective way, surely." Gu Shijiu did not know how to answer him anymore. "About that," she hesitantly added. The thought of their first night together came to her mind. Now that he was poisoned, he would definitely be wilder than before. Would she feel pain or pleasure? She gulped nervously, but there was nothing she could do to change the situation. He was already kissing her intensely. "Shijiu, I cannot hold it back anymore." The next second, her clothes were completely torn apart, and he started to shower her with kisses everywhere. "Shijiu, I am really glad that you came." Gu Shijiu finally stopped struggling and started embracing him tightly. Meanwhile, she could not help but think about the firmament stone. She finally understood what it meant when it said that she was the only one who could save him. Indeed, she had come a long way to surrender herself to him. Chapter 24:13, A glimpse of his true feelings. Gu Shijiu could clearly smell his scent and feel the strength of his well-built body. She breathed hastily under his hot breath. Di Fui held her tightly in his arms, so close that their bodies were basically merged into one. Perhaps it was the last time that the two of them would be separated. They were like two soul mates who had to go through many obstacles to be reunited with each other again. Now that they had finally found one another, they would not let anything get in their way. They were clinging on to one another physically, showering each other with kisses and endless affection. No amount of intimacy was enough for them to express their deeply rooted love for one another. Both of them were naked, and Di Fui traced every part of her body and kissed every inch from her lips to her little finger. She was overwhelmed by how affectionate Di Fui was to her. The man no longer wanted to hold back his desire for her. However, he also knew that this was only her second time having sex. It had been a while since their first night together, so even if he was desperate, he did not want to risk hurting her, for fear that she might dislike the experience and push him away in the future. Therefore, he tried to control himself and went at a slower pace than what he wanted. He tried to satisfy her needs in every way possible so that she would surrender herself willingly to him. Indeed, his efforts paid off as it was a very pleasurable experience for her. Everywhere his fingers glided over gave her such an irresistible sensation. Gu Shijiu was surprised her how slowly he took things in bed. She knew how hard it was for him to control his desire as she had expected him to go all out, but to her surprise, he did not skip the foreplay that preceded intercourse. He really did care about her. His loving gesture touched her, she wrapped her arms around his waist as she planted a gentle kiss on his lips. You. Hurry up. I am ready. Astonished, Di Fui whispered into her ear, do you want me now? Gu Shijiu could already feel the eagerness that took over all of her senses. She gave him another kiss on his chin and answered frankly, yes. Di Fui's eyes darkened, for he was ready to unleash his desires for her. Baby, your honesty is what I admire the most. He then began his quest. Both of them had experienced the sensation before. There was a mixture of anxiety and anticipation for Gu Shijiu, it was the opposite for Di Fui. He was like a man who just got his thirst quenched. The moment was truly intimate for the two of them. Occasionally, the flowers would shed and dance in the swirling winds that circled them. That produced a fantastic scent. Some petals fell onto their bodies that were now drenched in sweat, gathering and forming into numerous red dots on their bare backs. A petal slowly landed in Gu Zijia's hand, which finally reminded her of something she had long forgotten. Some of her senses returned, and she pushed him away slightly all of a sudden. Yunqing Luo creates this place, right? Where did you send her? Will she come back and see us here? She did not want others to see what they were doing. Don't worry. I have her locked up in the wuxia wizardry barrier that only permits entrances, not exits. She cannot possibly escape from there. Be patient and just focus on me. He became more aggressive and completely distracted her away from her preoccupation. There was one more thing that still bothered her. If Yunqing Luo created the wizardry barrier, would she be able to tell about everything that was going on inside it? Yunqing Luo could tell that Gu Shijiu was present, but she could not see what that they were doing. Yunqing Luo had been planning this plot for years. Yet, it seemed to bridge the gap between Di Fui and someone else unexpectedly. All she had created was someone else's success. Yunqing Luo was utterly frustrated with the unpleasant surprise of Gu Zijia's presence, but there was nothing she could do as she was trapped in the fires of hell. She only hoped that Di Fui would not be able to recognize Gu Shijiu and that he would think that the Gu Shijiu that he was seeing was one of her many illusions. She wanted Gu Shijiu to suffer just as much as she did. Every moment past was a torment to Yunqing Luo. Her soul was getting burned up in flames. She had suffered a great deal. Evil thoughts surfaced her mind as she kept waiting for Gu Shijiu to be mistakenly sent to join her in agony. 4 hours had passed, but there was still no sight of Gu Shijiu. Yunqing Luo felt as though she had been waiting for an eternity. Soon, she could tell that the wizardry barrier had started to shake a little and was slowly breaking apart. That signaled that Di Fui's poison was getting cured. Gu Shijiu must be the one who came to his aid. Yunqing Luo could not hold back her tears anymore. With a cry of anguish, she was on the verge of breaking down. She wanted to end her life but to bring the two of them down as well. However, one of her souls was still trapped in her physical body. She could not perish unless her body was dead. Di Fui, kill me now. Kill me. She screamed and shouted with all of her strength. Unfortunately, the confinement that Di Fui had created for her was completely restricted. No one could even hear her, no matter how loudly she cried out. They were happy together. The joy was so surreal to them. Yunqing Luo thought that she had everything planned out. The love potion that she made for Di Fui was meant to be incurable by any medicines. The only way was to perform the double physical and spiritual cultivation with a woman. She wanted Di Fui to have an unforgettable experience, so she made sure that the amount of joy and pleasure that accompanied the cultivation was double the usual. Also, the woman would be able to share an equal amount of pleasure from the man as well. She thought that the woman would be her. Since it would only be their souls that were entangled spiritually, their physical bodies would not experience any exhaustion at all. Di Fui and Gu Shijiu were indeed having a great time together. It had been 3 times already. During the first round, Gu Shijiu could feel that her legs were a little sore. After the second time, she could already feel that her waist was becoming a little stiff. She thought that 2 rounds were enough to quench the desire in his body, so she wanted to get up from the bed right after he cleaned her up with the cleaning spell. However, he would not let her leave. Although it had been a very pleasant experience, Gu Shijiu was still a little worried about him. She pushed his chest away and said, "I think this is enough. You should not be asking for more. Do not stress out your body too much." Di Fui locked his arms around the top of her head. "Do not worry about me. I know my body well." Gu Shijiu did not know what to say. "Baby, I have been waiting for this for so long. You have to let me enjoy it to the fullest." Astonished, Gu Shijiu was surprised by his unfulfilled needs. "Fui, you are still young, so we should be more careful in this matter. You are not even 10 years old yet." After telling him her concern, she immediately had to pay the price for what she said. Di Fui looked at her with a crooked smile. "Baby, I did not know that I am still a child to you. Very well then, you should also know that children are quite naughty." At first, he was worried that he might hurt her, so he dared not push it to the limits. This time around, he purposely increased the speed of his actions. Every thrust was so intense and satisfying at the same time. Utterly contented, she could no longer talk and only focused on his every moment. Di Fui was the son of a god and was endowed with a unique physique and soul. A year of development to him was the equivalent of a decade of growth to an ordinary man. In other words, he could achieve more progress in a year than others could in 10. Now that he was 9 years old, it was the equivalent of him being a 90-year-old man. Therefore, he was already an adult, mentally and physically. Generally, no one would bring up his age when they met him as he already seemed like a mature adult. Gu Shijiu was the only woman who always paid attention to that particular detail. "Hey, have the toxins been cured or not?" After the 3rd time, Gu Shijiu finally surrendered. Could he possibly be asking for more? She wanted to read his pulse but was immediately halted. Di Fui grabbed her hands and turned her around to change to another position. "Almost there, just a little bit more," he whispered into her ear. Helplessly, Gu Shijiu could only obey. He was indeed a very, very desperate man at the moment. Since she volunteered herself, he made use of every bit of her body, from head to toe. There was hardly any distance between them. She looked at his beautiful face intently and was immediately overwhelmed by the intense feelings of love that they shared. There were some things that she did not quite understand, but there was one thing she was sure about: he truly loved her. It was an undeniable fact. She knew very well that she loved him, too. She was the happiest that she could be when they were together, even if they did not do anything. When he went missing, she felt as if there was a missing piece in her life. It was as if she was rootless and adrift, like a floating leaf with no sense of direction. She could not help but think about their previous lives and how madly in love they had been. Then, she suddenly recalled something. Di Fui said that they had been in love since his past life. Had he recalled his memory? "Do you now remember your past? Were we married?" "I have a feeling that we used to live together for quite some time," Gu Shijiu commented. Di Fui was slightly distracted by her question. He then planted a soft kiss on her lips to stop her from talking. "Stay focused." Gu Shijiu complied and remained quiet. She was really eager to know if he had really recalled their past together. However, she needed to wait until everything was over. She was curious about what he used to do in the past and how they met. There were many other things that she wanted to find out too. The firmament stone had all the answers to her questions, but it refused to share anything with Gu Shijiu. Finally, there was a way for her to learn the truth. Baby, if you get distracted again, I will do this to you all night and make sure that you will not be able to get off from the bed. I can go up to 7 times if that is what it takes. Di Fui bit her ears as he threatened her. Based on his abilities in bed, she believed him and dared not think about anything else at that moment. If he really insisted on doing it for 7 rounds, she would be completely exhausted by the time they were done. Time continued to pass, and Gu Shijiu had no idea how long they had been in bed. She only knew that she was fast asleep before he even got off from her. When Di Fui tried to clean her up, she thought that he was trying to make love to her again, and she quickly rejected it. No more, she begged in her sleep while holding his hand. Di Fui teased her, baby, my toxins are not entirely cured. Settle it yourself. She could still think straight even when she was asleep. Try and look for Miss Five Fingers. Although Di Fui knew a little bit about the modern era, there were still some terms that he had never heard of before. Miss Five Fingers? Who is that? He was absolutely confused. She was surprised that he did not know what she was talking about. With a disdainful smile, she showed off her hand and explained to him, This is Miss Five Fingers. Di Fui was speechless. He reached across and took her hand. Are you offering to help me with your hands? Gu Shijiu pulled her hand away and answered scornfully, use your own hands. He was surprised by how much she actually knew about sex. Gu Shijiu had fallen asleep in his presence. She was akin to a traveler who wandered around the world and finally found a home and someone she could trust. Her face looked calm and comfortable despite being in the presence of another man. One of her little hands still held his finger, worried that he would run away or disappear again. Gu Shijiu pulled his hand toward her and used it as a pillow for her small face. Di Fui was certainly delighted by her actions. He cuddled her tightly in his embrace. The poison had been completely removed from his body, and the wizardry barrier that Yunqing Luo made could no longer trap him in this place. He could return to the Shura world with Gu Shijiu at any time. As he contemplated his recent predicament, he was actually very puzzled. The wizardry barrier that Yunqing Luo made was so abnormal. How did she even create this kind of poison? Meanwhile, in Gu Zijia's sleep, she mumbled about something. She said, delivered to the door, all of a sudden, and Di Fui had no clue who she was talking to in her sleep. Baby, do you want to go back? He asked in her ear. I am sleepy. Don't give me any trouble, let me sleep. Thus, Di Fui decidedly to stay quietly in that place. As long as Gu Shijiu was there with him, it did not matter where he was located. In truth, he had not recalled the memories of his so-called past life but only confirmed from Yunqing Luo that in his previous life, he was the Lord, Huang Tuesday. He did not expect Huang Tu to be reincarnated, given that he was said to have broken the heavenly laws in the past. There were very few people who could break the heavenly laws. Perhaps, in his past life, he must have been a mighty person. Did his father know the inside story? Did he have the same surname in his previous life? Who else had this memory besides Yunqing Luo? He shook his head to dismiss the countless questions that surfaced in his mind and heart. For the time being, there was no answer. Also, he was too tired to ponder about it now. Di Fui started to shift his thoughts away from his past and back to his present. Yunqing Luo was no longer an issue for him, but Yun Yanli remained a cause for concern. Furthermore, he had found out from Yunqing Luo that there was an even bigger man who hid behind him. Although the person had not officially appeared, he had certainly stirred a lot of trouble for Di Fui. The man used some dark sorcery to accelerate Yun Yanli's growth so that he would reach the level of a golden immortal in a short period of 100 years. But what was his intention? Surely he had a bigger plan than to take Di Fui down. Was it Luo Jiuqian who was behind everything? Was he trying to steal the title of Divine Lord from his father? Seeing the type of curses that Yunqing Luo had involved herself in gave Di Fui an indication that this was the work of Luo Jiuchen. However, Luo Jiuchen had been locked away and was not allowed to come back for at least 50,000 years. Hence, it was unlikely to be Luo Jiuchen. Whoever it was, the person must be the one who taught Yun Yanli his powers about 200 years ago. Di Fui believed that Yun Yanli intended to become the Emperor Immortal. He was personally not very concerned about who held this position as long as they did not do something terrible and misused their power. Therefore, if Yun Yanli got this position based on his own ability, he would not intervene. However, that was obviously not the case since the man had involved himself in dark sorcery to accelerate his development. Therefore, Di Fui needed to deal with this matter. He studied his hand and noted that he was currently a level 9 golden immortal. With his speed of cultivation, it would take at least 3 years for him to achieve the level of a mighty immortal. The difference between their abilities was too significant. He looked at the person in his arms and heaved a sigh of relief. Since she was by his side, he would push himself to work harder. Of course, he would also push her to become an immortal as soon as possible so that she could return to the upper bound with him. Besides, she had been practiced to the level of a great deity up there. Her skills should be comparable to his mother's. Gu Shijiu had told Di Fui before that her accomplishments were achieved in the lower bound. When she was still less than 50 years old, she had already cultivated to the level of a great deity. This was very extraordinary. The fact that she did so in the lower bound was even more remarkable. There were only 2 possibilities for this to happen. First, all the skills were passed to her before the death of Huang Tuesday. However, as Huang Tu disappeared, she lost her memory about it. Second, she was, indeed, a very extraordinary person. Among these 2, the first one seemed to make more sense to Di Fui, but he could not completely rule out the second conjecture either. After being punished by the heavenly laws and cursed to be in the Shura world, Gu Zijia's abilities had deteriorated substantially. However, perhaps her abilities would be restored once she makes it out. Di Fui bowed his head and kissed her forehead at the thought. He held her tightly in his arms and said, Shijiu, although I am the reincarnation of Huang Tu, I still hope that you can fall in love with me in this life. This was one of the reasons why he never told Gu Shijiu that he was the reincarnation of Huang Tu even after he confirmed that with Yunqing Luo. He really wanted Gu Shijiu to love him for the man he was right now as opposed to the person in her memory, which he did not know. Di Fui calculated the time and realized that it was still early. Since Gu Shijiu was tired, he should let her continue to rest. Therefore, he would let her sleep for another 4 hours. Right after that, they would need to return to their bodies and settle matters in the Shura world. Hua Qianyu had killed Yunqing Luo. He and Guardian Jin had been waiting outside the wizardry barrier set in place by Gu Shijiu. They were tasked to guard Yunqing Luo while waiting for Gu Shijiu to return together with Di Fui. As time passed by, the 2 of them grew rather uneasy. They were anxious, and Zhu Duqing was also worried. In fact, Zhu Duqing was more worried than them. He wanted to break into the barrier several times, but he could not enter it. Furthermore, Guardian Jin and Guardian Hua had been preventing him from doing so. The 2 guards were afraid that he would give them trouble, so Guardian Jin was assigned to follow Zhu Duqing at all times while Hua Qianyu was to guard Yunqing Luo. Yunqing Luo had been snoring away, so Hua Qianyu was not too concerned. However, Yunqing Luo seemed to have opened her eyes after some time, and Hua Qianyu was shocked by her action. He wanted to ask her if she was the culprit behind the Devil King's current predicament, but he was too stunned to think clearly at the time. Kill me. Kill me. Hua Qianyu, please kill me. I have suffered enough. You do love me, right? Can you even stand seeing me this way? Don't you want revenge for your brother and your niece? Kill me so that you can avenge them and fulfill my request simultaneously. Although Yunqing Luo did not open her mouth to speak, Hua Qianyu could hear her as if she did. It was a very tempting request. Hua Qianyu ignored her at the beginning. However, he could not seem to resist her constant persuasions that came in the form of threats, tears, and pleas. She had used all the methods she could. Hua Qianye's heart was shaken, and finally, he was controlled by the voice. He pulled out his sword, and stabbed it into Yun Qingluo's heart. He even took the opportunity to shatter her heart into pieces. Yun Qingluo screamed momentarily, and her body fell gently to the ground. Chapter 24:18, Could not be saved. The sudden loud cry had alarmed Guardian Jean. He ran toward the sound to take a look and was shocked by what his eyes had seen. Hua, what did you do? Hua Qianyu seemed to come to his senses and was also stunned by what he saw. He obviously did not want to kill her, but he seemed to be momentarily possessed. He looked at Yun Qingluo to see if she was still alive. However, there were no vital signs left. She could not be saved. Zhu Duqing came over as well to check on the two of them. Just leave her be. Hua Qianyu was disappointed with himself. The Devil King had instructed us to keep her alive. Zhu Duqing did not care. The reason why your Devil King wanted to keep her alive was because of their past relationship. Since she is now dead, what can you do? By the way, why would you kill her? You even shattered her heart. Hua Qianyu lamented, this. She had tricked me into killing her with a magical voice. Zhu Duqing remained silent. He frowned as he walked around Yun Qingluo's body. Although nothing seemed wrong on the surface, he had a hunch that things were not what they appeared to be. Guardian Jean suddenly heard something. Hey, are the animals outside a little instigated? Zhu Duqing tried to listen, and his facial expression suddenly changed slightly. Something is wrong. As they were now deep underground, they should not be able to hear the creatures in the swamp. However, they could hear beasts approaching them from all directions right now. It was getting louder and louder, and the ground tremored more fiercely as it did. The gravel above their heads started crumbling down too. Gosh, this cave is going to collapse. Hua Qianyu expressed his concern. It felt like a level 8 earthquake, and the three of them certainly found it difficult to keep their ground. If an earthquake happened deep in a cave, it was merely a catastrophe for those present. They must escape immediately, or they would be buried deep underground. Devil King and Miss Gu are still inside the wizardry barrier. Guardian Jean yelled and rushed to the side of the barrier. Hua Qianyu also followed him. As the two of them were in a hurry, no one brought Yun Qingluo's body with them. As they turned back, they could see that the place where she lied suddenly split into a big hole, and her body was subsequently swallowed into the hole. Because of the earthquake, all the rocks were shifted, which inevitably broke the rock array made by Gu Shijiu. There were big and small stones crashing into each other, which created a big area of dust. Zhu Duqing ran towards the barrier and was ready to rescue Gu Shijiu at the first opportunity that he had. All three of them were now right in front of the place where the barrier stood, and in the dust, they faintly saw two figures hugging each other. As the dust was still settling, they could not see the two figures clearly. Zhu Duqing shouted, Master Shijiu. He was about to leap over but realized that the two people, who were hugging each other, suddenly moved. He had not seen the appearance of the two people but noticed that there was a 7-colored ray of light that appeared in front of him. A milky white layer appeared instantly, covering the two people as the other three held their breaths. What did this mean? Guardian Jean and Guardian Hua were suddenly ecstatic. Devil King. This milky white layer did not last a long time. It took a minute or two to remove the cover, but it eventually revealed the two people inside. Chapter 24:19, Could not be saved. 2. Gu Shijiu and Di Fui emerged from the protective layer. The two of them were still in the same attire as before. One was wearing green clothes, and another one was wearing a purple robe. Gu Shijiu looked a little confused. She distinctly remembered that she had sex with Di Fui, then she was too tired and fell asleep. When she woke up, she realized that she was in a chaotic scene with boulders rolling around. Before Gu Shijiu could react, there is a white cover around her. Then, there was a set of clothes automatically fitted on her body. She leaned against Di Fui and realized that he was also neatly dressed. Baby, let's go out. Something has changed. Therefore, when the cover was withdrawn, everyone could finally see them. Gu Shijiu seemed to realize what was going on, and her pretty face turned blue. The earthquake had entirely destroyed her stone array. She distinctly remembered that she was naked before she went into Di Fui's illusion. Did everyone here see her hugging Di Fui without her clothes on? Di Fui's arm was around her waist, and he said 2 words, "Don't worry." He woke up very timely and was shocked to see her naked in that position. However, because things were happening too quickly, he had no time to ponder about it. He saw the surrounding stone formation was crumbling and that there were shadows were flying toward him. Therefore, he quickly set up a wizardry barrier. Fortunately, the people around them did not see how they were tangled with each other. Otherwise, they might need to get their eyes removed. Gu Shijiu breathed a sigh of relief, but she quickly became nervous when she observed her surroundings more carefully. The entire place was in ruins. Zhu Duqing was disappointed as he saw how intimate Gu Shijiu and Di Fui were with one another. However, it was not the right time to care about these trivial matters. They should leave this place as soon as possible. He was well aware of that. Di Fui looked around and asked, "Where is Yunqing Luo?" Guardian Hua looked guilty. "She is dead. I killed her." Di Fui looked at him and almost understood the whole incident. He suddenly thought of something. The big earthquake here is related to Yunqing Luo's death. While Di Fui was resting with Gu Shijiu in the illusion, he heard an abnormal sound. The barrier around him then disappeared like an avalanche while he heard the crazy laughter coming from Yunqing Luo. "Di Fui, I will pull you down with me to my grave." At that time, he wondered how he could possibly hear Yunqing Luo as he had trapped her. Now, he finally understood. This poisonous swamp was the base for her evil activities. Perhaps, her soul had somehow merged with this swamp, and once she died, this swamp would be destroyed as well. As they had entered into the deepest part of the swamp, which was at least a few hundred miles away from the shore, they would not possibly be able to run out of this place. Di Fui pulled Zhu Duqing toward him and said, "Open your magical door." Zhu Duqing was not willing to do so. "No, it takes half of my spiritual power to open it. I opened it a few days ago, and I have not recovered yet. We should run away now. We are not far from the big hole that you used to lure the crocodile in earlier. It is useless for us to go there. I am afraid that the situation there would be worse than where we are right now. You must open the door." Di Fui's stance was firm. Zhu Duqing was anxious. "If I use it again, I will be pretty much redundant. I would probably not even be able to run." Di Fui smashed a boulder nearby into pieces. "It doesn't matter. If you can't run, I will order someone to carry you." Guardian Jean immediately stood beside Zhu Duqing. "Mr. Zhu, rest assured. I will definitely carry you, and I will not leave you behind." Zhu Duqing was speechless. He had no choice but to agree with it. He raised his hand to cast a spell, and finally, the magical door was opened. "Quick! Quick! I can't hold it for long." Di Fui grabbed Gu Shijiu and quickly jumped in. The 2 guards then followed them in. Zhu Duqing seemed to think of something all of a sudden. He smacked his head. "Gosh! I should have asked them to enter at the same time. We are going to be in trouble." Seeing that the entire hole was going to collapse, Zhu Duqing did not dare to delay his escape any longer and also jumped in. There were large meteorites in the sky that were on fire and headed for the ground. As they hit the land on such high impact, the entire place shook and cracked all over. There was also magma in between the cracks that swallowed everything that passed by. The beasts in the poisonous swamp were running aimlessly as they did not know where to go. Some of them fell into the magma while others perished from the fireballs that crashed onto them. The scene certainly resembled an apocalypse. The fierce beasts that attacked them before could not do anything in the face of the natural disaster. When Gu Shijiu and Di Fui jumped through the door, they found themselves still in the poisonous swamp again. It was just as good as walking out of the cave. "This guy is completely unreliable." Gu Shijiu was disappointed. She looked around and asked Di Fui, why haven't the others reached yet? There were only 2 of them there. Di Fui pulled her along with him as he avoided the falling destructive fireballs. The magical door that Zhu Duqing controls is very strange. Not everyone that jumps through the door will go to the same place. When he offended me in the past, I chased after him to the point where he had to open one of his doors. I followed him into one as he fled but ended up in a different place. I think it is the same this time. I thought he was able to control it before and intentionally sent me somewhere else. It seems I was mistaken. Gu Shijiu was speechless for a moment. She could not believe that her apprentice had done something so stupid. Does that mean that all of us are in different places? Such an unreliable bamboo man. He is certainly not someone you can count on. You picked up this apprentice rather hastily. When we meet him again, you should drop him from your apprenticeship. And, when you are ready for a new disciple, I will help you to examine the person and make sure that he or she will satisfy you. Di Fui took the opportunity to make demands and let off steam about Zhu Duqing. He had not been impressed by the man. Since he got close to Gu Shijiu, he had always wanted to leave him behind somewhere. Gu Shijiu did not respond to Di Fui's complaints. Instead, she chose to focus her attention on their surroundings. The poisonous air around them was still very potent. Fortunately, the clothes that Di Fui had given Gu Shijiu were very good at blocking out any unwanted particles from the air. Moreover, Di Fui had set up a protective barrier around them so that the poisonous atmosphere would not harm them. Due to the calamity of the situation, they did not know their exact location and did not know which direction to go. Flying was probably their best option. As expected, they encountered all kinds of beasts, but since everyone was simply trying to escape, they did not have time to attack and hurt each other. It was such a rare sight. In the midst of finding their way out, Di Fui and Gu Shijiu took out their directed audio spells and tried to contact the 2 guards as well as Zhu Duqing, but they could not be contacted. Perhaps, the poisonous swamp had indirectly blocked their signal. Since the rest of them could not be contacted, Gu Shijiu and Di Fui could only concern themselves with breaking out of this place first. Hopefully, the 3 of them were already outside. Gu Shijiu followed Di Fui into the air as he used his spiritual power to help them fly. No matter what he encountered along the way, he held Gu Zijia's hand tightly with no intention of letting go. This feeling gave Gu Shijiu some peace of mind. She somehow remembered her last moment in the upper bound, where a disaster had struck her, and all the immortals that were with her had fled away. She was alone at the time and finally fell into a whirlpool. She then found herself in the Shura world with no memories of herself. This landslide somehow reminded her of that calamity. The main difference was that she had Di Fui by her side this time. They would face the challenge together. This feeling was so good. She looked at the flaming rocks that fell from the sky like rain. Was this the meteorite rain that she had heard of? It looked so beautiful, but it was also deadly. There seemed to be a woman's laughter in the air again. She sounded like a person who had lost her mind. Gu Shijiu frowned as the loud screams made her eardrums uncomfortable. Is Yunqing Luo still alive? Has she turned into a devil? No, she is dead. She can't be alive. However, she had probably attached her soul to this swamp. Therefore, when she died, the swamp also turned into a state of chaos. This voice is probably her leftover resentment on this land. Don't be afraid. Don't worry, Di Fui. Even if she is alive, I am not afraid of her. Gu Shijiu laughed. If it were not because of you, I would not have paid any attention to her. Di Fui held her little hand as he responded, Baby, I know that you are a strong girl, there is nothing that can knock you down. At such a critical moment, this guy still had the mood to sweet talk. Gu Shijiu pulled him together with her and teleported away. Let's continue this conversation once we escape. For now, please obediently follow me. Gu Zijia's teleportation technique was truly remarkable. Each time she used it, she could travel about 30 miles. Furthermore, her sense of direction was top-notch. Therefore, although she was not sure where she is at the moment, she could tell that the width of the swamp was probably about 400 miles. Hence, if she continued traveling in one direction, she could break out from here in about 15 teleportations. Unfortunately, even after she had teleported more than 20 times, she found herself still stuck in the crux of the swamp. The meteorite rain still poured down heavily, and the devil-like whistling sound continued to spook the place. Had they hit a ghost wall? Or was this something more complicated? With Gu Shijiu and Di Fui's abilities, a ghost wall could not actually trap them. They could easily break through any barrier of that sort in a matter of minutes. Yet, this time, they were stuck. Because of the earthquake and the constant bombardment of the flaming meteorites, there were very few places where they could actually settle down to think at this swamp. Not to mention that there was rolling magma everywhere and occasional herds of beasts rampaging the land together. It was the end of the world for most of them. The air was heating up so badly that Gu Shijiu began to hold her breath. Whenever she took a breath, she felt like she was inhaling a mouthful of dust. It burned her throat badly as well. Di Fui's eyes darkened at their current predicament. It appears that he had underestimated Yun Qingluo's insanity. It seemed that when she threatened to bury everyone with her, she really meant it. At the same time, it could be said that the person behind all this madness must be someone very mighty. Little Tsang, do you recognize this sorcery? Is there any way to break it? Gu Shijiu asked the firmament stone on her wrist for help. However, it seemed dead and unresponsive. This bastard always malfunctioned during critical times. Gu Shijiu had given up. However, Di Fui looked at the firmament stone and suddenly raised his sleeves on the jade bracelet. The firmament stone immediately flashed and shone brightly. Gu Shijiu suddenly remembered that she had sealed the 5 senses of firmament stone before entering the illusion to find Di Fui. No wonder it did not have any response earlier. After the firmament stone woke up, it was still a bit confused by its surroundings, so it asked a series of questions. Where are we? Is this a meteorite rain? Is this an illusion or reality? Is this the end of the world? Master, I am impressed. You actually saved him. It looks like he is fully recovered. The firmament stone's last remark was said with elation. Gu Shijiu was speechless. She seriously doubted whether this guy knew what she did after she entered into the illusion. Or was he a pimp? Anyway, it was naturally not the time to discuss this with it. Gu Shijiu was trying to explain the current situation to the firmament stone. Before she could really feed it with some useful information, Di Fui had interrupted them. He quickly told the firmament stone about Yun Qingluo. Although it was brief, he seemed to cover all the important points. Finally, he asked the firmament stone, she should have cast a spell in this swamp. Do you have a way to crack it? The firmament stone did not respond, but it started to flash. It looked as if it was searching for relevant information inside itself. After a while, it spoke weakly. This spell seems like a combination of ancient and modern magic. It is extremely complicated to set this up and requires very stringent conditions. The firmament stone began to list everything it knew in detail before it was interrupted by Gu Shijiu. I am not interested in how it came about. I just want to know how to crack it. The firmament stone was bothered by her impatience. After I explain the origin of this spell, then you can analyze the appropriate way out. Di Fui hugged Gu Shijiu. It's all right. Let it speak. Perhaps we can analyze clues from the people behind the scenes from its explanations. Gu Shijiu decided to give in and kept quiet while the firmament stone continued. According to the firmament stone, the person who taught Yun Qingluo the spell must be at least close to the level of a great deity, or even slightly above it. It seemed that the culprit had used a spell to bring Yun Qingluo back as a new person, and even transferred some of his skills to Yun Qingluo in the process of teaching her. It was because of this person's support that Yun Qingluo was able to tie her soul to this swamp. Yun Qingluo used this swamp as her last resort to bring her enemies down, and so here they were in this situation. Escaping this place would be impossible without breaking the spell cast by Yun Qingluo. After the analysis from the firmament stone, Gu Zijia's heart sank. Based on what it had said, Zhu Duqing and the rest would not be able to escape either. As she was with Di Fui, they were able to protect themselves from the meteorite rain and lava due to the wizardry barrier that Di Fui had set up to protect them. However, the two guards that came along with them were incomparable to Di Fui, so they would have probably perished by now. As for Mr. Zhu, this guy had some strange skills and magical weapons, but whether he could resist the melting magma was still an unknown. The burning question right now was, who was the person behind all this mess? According to the firmament stone, the magic involved was from a time even later than when Gu Shijiu was born. If Gu Zijius' era was in the year 2018, then this person probably existed in the year 3018, which was indeed a distant future.